in a minute, but I do want to move on to Valentino Rossi. You think we forgot about him? Absolutely not. If you're keeping up to date with Crash.net, you'll see that we are covering his action in his new venture, the GT World Challenge. 4 wheels, can you believe it? And he was racing, Keith, this weekend in Brands Hatch. They do 2 races. He shares an Audi R8 with a couple of other drivers as well. They take it in stints, and that's how it works. Got his first points, finished 8th in the second of the 2 races, avoided a huge crash in the first race, and performing, I think, fairly solidly. But it's interesting, isn't it, how a driver, well, he is a driver now, but a rider of that caliber just simply can't call it quits completely. You can't go cold turkey, can they?
Well, no, you never could. I mean, it depends on where you are in the pecking order of things. But I mean, a lot of us have dabbled with 4 wheels after we did the bikes. I mean, that just seems to be a normal run of things. You've always fancied taking a bit of a look at how difficult it is. I think Valentino had talent in the 4-wheeler, working back to the early days. I mean, been various Ferrari looked at him and so on and so forth, back in the day. But I think Brands Hatch, Sunshine, Valentino Rossi, what's not to like about that weekend? Just a shame it clashed with everything we were doing this weekend with MotoGP and BSB and so on and so forth. But again, you're going to think, all I do is sit on a bloody couch and watch TV. But I was watching that Simoncelli. It was on Sky Documentaries last night. The Simoncelli doco that the Valentino featured in quite a lot. About the Marco Simoncelli. Anybody that doesn't know Marco Simoncelli, he won his first Grand Prix World Championship at Sepang International Circuit and was killed at Sepang International Circuit some 3 years later. And Valentino and Colin Edwards were part of the 3 guys that came together when Marco crashed and was sadly killed. But the interesting part of that was how much Valentino and Simoncelli were competitive away from the scenes. Valentino brought him in. They used to race around this quarry. I can recommend the doco. I don't think it was that great. I think it was made by Sky TV Italia, but there were lots of bits missing. It sort of jumped a bit around. But the Valentino stuff was quite interesting from the fact that he used to hire this quarry and they used to ride around this quarry. Really dangerous with all this bloody quarry kit, cranes and God knows what everywhere. And he brought Simoncelli in at the time to try to up the level of challenge. Valentino has always had, now on the ranch, the more sophisticated side of the Valentino empire. The ranch, they bring in all the latest riders, all the quick young kids. And Valentino is, even at 43 years old or wherever he is now, 44 years old, heading for, he's always made sure that he's had these people around to sharpen his edge all of the time. I can't see where he's going to stop. I've got friends that still race cars. I'm a friend of mine, Mike Wilds, who's also a helicopter instructor. I mean, he's a glamorous fellow, isn't he? Mike Wilds. Look up Mike Wilds, Harry, if you don't know him personally. He's a great guy, drives really fast. He's ancient and he still drives cars really quickly. And I can see Valentino going on that kind of distance. What you do is you adjust the series that you're in to suit your capabilities to some extent. You go, when you're really old, you go classic racing. There's so many great classic races to go to. Goodwood, the Revival, the members meeting, so on and so forth. There are all these things. Valentino doesn't need money at all. He really does. He doesn't need any more fame. He doesn't need any more anything. He's now, with child as well. His family is now built, or building. We're in a situation where it is just that absolute burning passion that he has in his heart and that rush that you get. I mean, all of us, and I don't think there is one racer that took his racing seriously, that reached a reasonable level, that doesn't occasionally hark back. And I really can talk from experience here. I watched the TV last night and I looked back at some of the things that Marco Simoncelli was doing and some of the mistakes he made in his early life and some of the comments that were being made. And it brings it all back. It rushes back. It's like a flood of remembering what you went through at that time, how exciting it was, how you look forward to being at a racetrack, getting to a racetrack. I have a daily war with my wife over holidays. I'm interested. I'm not interested. And I'm an awful husband for the fact that all I want to do is spend my holiday at a bloody racetrack. It's actually quite wrong, and I know I'm not a good person for it. And it's something I've got to deal with. But I just want to go racing. I just want to go and watch racing. I want to go and be amongst those people. And it's a really difficult thing to get out of, even with the family of 5 that we've got here. You can't get away from it, and it affects your entire life forever. So I can't see Valentino, a man that has the resources and the infrastructure to do whatever he wants to do in the future, doing what he wants to do in the future.
But it's how you're wired, isn't it, Keith? Clearly, because you've got that racing driver brain that well, I can't speak for Pete, but I obviously don't have that. But interestingly, he may have that passion and that want to continue racing, and he must have this belief that he's going to get better and better and be on the top step of the podium, be fighting for titles and championships. But that switch is hard to do. But and if it doesn't happen, is he going to still have that drive to carry on, finishing in 8th?
No, he won't finish. He won't. Obviously, if he doesn't see an improvement, he'll either adjust. Like I said, he'll either adjust the series to something that suits him better, or he'll wind it down to some extent. But you'll always have that in your mind. It will always be there. He'll never ever lose that. Especially him. He's a guy that's gone on into old age, effectively, from a racing point of view. We're talking about the men from the 50s used to race into their 40s, but nowadays it's quite a rare thing. I mean, some of that is down to the fact that teams give you the sack before you get a chance to develop any further on. Of course, there is this raft of youngsters coming through, although that's obviously changed with the 18-year-old entry level rule now that we're going to be starting from next year. So it moves the scale up a few years, but all the same, it's a situation where normally the decision on how, when, and where you go racing, it's not your decision. You're always racing at the highest level you can possibly race at. That's the key here. You're always trying to move that step forward. But eventually, what happens is someone else makes a decision for you. Like we talked about Dovizioso. It will probably be his decision as well, but he won't get an opportunity to race, in MotoGP next year. I don't believe. There will be other riders that are feeling a bit nervous at the moment because they're looking around them and seeing who's in their slipstream for their ride at the moment. So they get eased out fairly soon. Valentino Rossi retired at the top end. He was still top 10 material any day of the week, even in his worst years. There are some records he didn't break. He's still got the most wins in MotoGP of anybody. Agostini's still behind him. But Agostini won more top championships by one. I think he won 8 and Valentino won 7, didn't he, in the top class? So there are some things that Valentino didn't achieve. These are not of any interest to him, by the way. These are not things that he will be losing any sleep over. But the fact is, that momentum, that forward, he won't keep going forward if he can't see a step forward, if he can't make a progression, because that's the way that racers are wired. If they cannot see that they're moving forward in that particular situation, then they won't continue with it. And they won't be allowed to. Even Valentino Rossi won't be offered the top drive if he isn't performing. That's the way of sport, and I love it.
In terms of where Rossi wants to go with this, I think that the long-term goal is Le Mans. That seemed to be everything he was speaking about last year, his final year. His eyes would light up when he spoke about, wanting to do Le Mans. Now, I'm no expert on sports car racing, so I don't know exactly what the path is to get there from where he is now, but that seems to be what he's looking at. So once he achieves that, then who knows? As Keith says, I think it depends on how competitive he is. As far as this year, it looks like the highlight for him will be racing at Spa. I think there's a big 24-hour race at Spa that his championship does, and he's never raced at Spa at all. And obviously a legendary track, so that's another one that he can tick off his list for this year. So those two things look to be motivators for him, aside from the obvious thing, which is he's got to be competitive. I mean, Rossi he's a winner, or he's got to believe he has a chance of winning. And as long as he sees steps forward, as Keith says, I'm sure he'll keep doing it. It'll be in a couple of years when his kids are a bit older, maybe. I say kids, maybe there'll be another one. But, when they want to go to school and things like that, how would he feel then about, going off racing? Who knows? But for now, I think that's where he is. He's looking forward to doing these sports car races, Spa, Le Mans as soon as he can in the future. And then it depends on the results.
Certainly does. Well, if you want to see him again in action, the next race is Magny Core, and that's round 3 of the GT World Challenge on the 13th to the 15th of May. And I think you're right about the Le Mans ambition. And he's certainly, that is the path, usually GT racing, and perhaps he will race in a GT3 car. He's always had those links to Ferrari. They might well want to field him as part of their lineup in the multiple classes that make up Le Mans. But it's certainly going to be one to watch, and we'll keep you updated with it as well on Crash.net as to how Valentino gets on in the four-wheeled world. Let us know as well in the comments if you've got any burning desires for us to talk about, anything, topics or things like that. We're always pleased to hear from you. Let us know your predictions as well as they come in. Our leaderboard currently stands. Keith, you got a point with Quartararo taking the win, so you're on 6 points in the lead. Pete,
second.
Oh, sorry. Yes, you're right. Oh no. Oh yeah. Sorry. You said he was going to win, but no. So you get a point. Pete got 2 points for Quartararo and Aleix Espargaro. So you're still in second with 3 points. And I'm finally on the board with my picks of Quartararo as well. And Aleix, 2 points on the board. It's getting tight. It's a long season to go. As ever, make sure you're tuned in across Crash.net for all the latest news and analysis. Across the week, of course, with testing. Pete's keeping you up to date with all the timings on that as well. And we shall be back with you same time next week. Get your questions in, leave them in the comments section, or tweet, Instagram, Facebook us. Just search Crash MotoGP. Please do leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts. And yes, we'll be right back here next week. Bye-bye.